Bev's Video Kingdom is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised.
I can grab your favorite podcast. Let's start this thing. Woo!
All right, welcome back to Bev's Video Kingdom. So let me start out with, I think they call this a trigger warning. So we're doing the movie Spotlight this week. It's a Academy Award winner. It's a really, really well done movie. It's one that personally I've watched a number of times. So I would say I would give my unadulterated recommendation for this movie. The exception is that if you're somebody that is particularly sensitive for whatever reason to the content that has to do with child sexual abuse, pedophilia, especially that related to like church figures, you probably don't want to watch it, or at least you want to be warned that that's the topic of the movie, and that thus will be the topic of the pod. So with that warning, welcome to Bev's Video Kingdom. This is Spotlight.
So just to start off with a little bit of brevity, we decided to ask a buddy of ours to come on the pod, and Nate was like, why don't you pick out a movie that you really love? And so he sends a list of movies to Nate, and the first movie on the list,
Hot Shot.
number one, was Hot Shot. And so we're like, Hot Shot, like the Charlie Sheen movies, right? Like the really silly Charlie Sheen movies.
We just did Top Gun. I don't know if we can do Hot Shot.
So we're like, man, I don't even know where we would even watch it.
When I texted him, I was just like, man, I'll watch it for sure, whatever you want. I don't know that movie. And he's like, dude, you don't know the one? You know the one with the Catholic priest, And I was like, Spotlight? And then I was like fired up,
Number one on his list.
Yeah, yes, we're going to do Spotlight.
I love this movie so much. No idea what the name is. It's called Hot Shot, right?
So yeah.
I was wondering why it wasn't pluralized. Because it's Hot Shots.
No, it's this one Hot Shot that there's out there. So Spotlight. So I'm hosting here, and this was actually funny enough. This was on on Nick's list. Our old co-host. Pour a little out for Nick.
Old buddy, pal.
So this is a movie that's kind of a weird one for me. So it wins the Academy Award for Best Picture, and it's
Wait. Best Picture?
Oh yeah,
100%.
Oh yeah, no, this is a Best Picture winner.
And
what year?
And Best Screenplay.
Is it
2015?
15, yeah. So it's like it kills. It's relatively successful with the box office, not like smash hit, but definitely does well.
It made $98 million on a $20 million budget.
Yeah,
That's
so good.
pretty
Good.
successful.
No, I mean really successful. But I'm just saying it wasn't like what we would call a blockbuster, but it kills. I mean, it makes a lot of money and it does really well after the fact. The content of the movie, as I just sort of warned, is like a strange one to have that kind of success. Partly because you think of it as, who's texting you, bro?
It wasn't me. It wasn't me that time. Did you guys hear that ding? It was not me. Brad looked at me immediately and was like, God damn.
Because you don't. By the way, can we have a little sidebar?
Oh,
here?
Can we talk about this?
Let's talk. Let's just break.
Listeners, who's in the wrong here?
Okay, so. So the other day, Brad, what'd you send? Oh, there's a crash in the F1 race, and if you listen to our Rush pod, you'll know that Brad is an F1 aficionado. So
huge fan.
So there's a crash recently in the opening of the race.
Now, what you need to know about F1.
This race was in Silverstone. It was in England, so we got up and we were watching it live at 7 a.m.
So Brad wakes his family up at 4:30 in the morning on Sunday.
Well, you got to watch all the pre-race stuff. You got to watch Martin on the grid and everything. So yeah.
So they're watching. So there's this race that happens. So Brad about 7:20, which Zach later claimed was like 6 o'clock.
6:15 a.m.
6:15. It was 7:20. Sends a text message around with a link to the crash. Right now, I blissfully had no idea of this because I was like a normal person sitting there without my phone on ring.
No. You're burying the lead here. So I'm fully asleep. I've drank some the night before. I'm fully asleep. I'm sleeping well. I'm sleeping great. Sleeping like a baby, Scott. And you know what? Here comes ding. Ding!
Because I replied.
And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I check my phone and it's Brad texting at like 7 in the morning. I can't go back to sleep.
Okay.
I'm super pissed.
You cannot leave your phone on. Let's just
And then that's where I get gaslit by all of you where you're like, what are you doing with your phone on? Who turns their fucking phone off? No one turns their phone off. No one turns their phone off. You turn your phone off, Scott? You do not. I know you don't.
It's on silent.
There's no way it's on
Mine's on
silent.
Silent. Everybody.
That's crazy, you
Okay,
guys.
we should do a listener poll.
I would love to do a poll.
Because I think that you will be like the one of 1,000.
How many of you guys turn your phone off when you're sleeping at night?
Not off,
and
but
how
just
many?
silent.
And how many of you
Just
are
silent
normal
to
people? Don't
vibrate.
quit raising your hand. It doesn't matter.
And do not disturb is another function you can use too, where you can have
Where
a
you can
couple
have
people
that
who can
through.
like break through and actually make noise.
See,
Jesus, our guest is out of control.
he's mad. He's like, turn the phone off. Dude, I cannot believe that you guys turn your phones off and you're dead to the world while you're sleeping. I could not do that. I could absolutely could not.
That's
do
weird.
that.
Okay.
You don't want assholes waking you up at 7:15 in the morning.
I'm so upset.
I'm in a band with a bunch of assholes that like
lot.
to text random shit at random times. So that shit's on silent, buddy.
Dude, how is it in your brother's band?
Brad's brother has a band. Hey, Scott, Brad's brother has a band too.
I've had a few people come up to me and say, "Oh my god, I was
So
dying and laughing at that whole part." Just
Brad's
because,
brother and Scott both have bands.
That's right.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah.
Okay, so Jesus Christ. Sorry, we're in the outdoor bev studio, and some guy keeps walking around and banging into our table. Okay, so
Drunken buffoon.
so we're so Spotlight is a weird one in the sense that the content is heavy. So as I said earlier, right? I mean, it chronicles the investigative reporting that uncovers the original major scandal of widespread pedophilia and sexual abuse of children in the Catholic Church that eventually uncovers it around the world, right? It's focused on the Boston cases, and it's heavy. I mean, in the sense that it's not and we'll get into this, but like it's not sort of it doesn't in any way glorify or even show or depict
Not
any
at
of
all,
the
which I was
abuse.
surprised by.
Right.
I was talking to Scott before I started watching it, and I was just like, "Hey man, like I'm about to watch it. Like is something like is it R-rated? Is it graphic or anything?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "No,
None of that.
There's a couple F-bombs, I think, but I mean, obviously the themes are quite mature and
they do not to sort of step on some of my sort of later content, but they say in the movie, right? Like we don't, part of the point, and I would argue maybe one of the main theses of the movie is like you can't whitewash this. Like you got to actually talk about the real shit. You can't just even saying molest. Or abuse is too general,
Right.
and it
She
makes
pushes
it feel,
the one guy.
it
She's
makes
like,
it
they
feel
need to
okay,
hear
right?
it. Yeah.
I need
You
specifics.
want to say what happened, like the shit that's like horrible to hear, so that people have to hear that and understand that they have to take action.
in the gun violence conversation, I mean, that's been actually kind of been starting to get brought up. Is that they kind of like how they had in the cigarettes and stuff, they had the packs of like showing like the messed up lungs and things like that. It's like people are starting to say like, well, if we want to be serious about gun violence, we kind of just need to show what it looks like. And I mean, it's terrible, and it's not going to be pretty imagery. But I mean, if you've seen anything, if you've been on the internet, you've probably caught a view of a gunshot wound here or there, and it's not.
But if
it's not pretty at all.
but if you were making a movie about mass shooting or that sort of issue, I mean, that would be shown, right? I mean,
Right.
But it's they almost made a specific point not to show any of it, which is fine with me. I don't need to see any of it. But I mean, it made me wonder: would the movie have? I mean, it's a pretty impactful movie. Would the movie be even more impactful, or would it have taken away from the impact?
I mean, I would argue that like for two reasons it would be less impactful. One is like it would be seen in some ways as being like gratuitous. And so people would, see it critically in that way. But second, I think there's fewer people can handle it, right? Like,
Agreed.
As heavy as it is, I don't, like I've watched that movie a bunch, and it enrages me every time. It makes me think like, oh, okay, like I'm against anything that supports anything that the institutional Catholic Church is trying to do.
It doesn't need it. It doesn't
need it.
Because it's your mind paints a picture because they're being very descriptive. They're telling about the acts. They're explaining
And
everything.
the actors that are
you're
playing
seeing
the
victims who are
survivors are doing
reacting
really like give you
super
that
emotional,
heavy feeling.
And the thing is, what's the craziest part about this whole thing is it is a true story. Like it's
and it does a pretty good job, I think, of following.
I looked up an article, and it's pretty damn close. Other than maybe a few, like Rachel McAdams' character Sasha, isn't the one that actually got the confession out of that one priest. It was the Armenian guy that kept like kind of butting in.
The Hulk?
Listening. No, not Ruffalo.
Oh.
The one of the side characters, the guy that's kind of sitting at the tables, kind of overhearing things, whatever.
Okay.
So I guess that was the guy who actually got the confession, but she actually wrote the story.
Okay.
So little things like that it makes it for a better story,
Right.
which makes sense. But
Yeah.
they didn't embellish anything as far as the facts and how everything about the thing.
So I'll ask the old guys at the table. Like for me, it's almost a cliche at this point, like Catholic priests and little boys, right? It's like a thing that's in the zeitgeist of society or whatever. Was that before this story came out? Was it not a thing? Because it sounds like a story came out in like 2001 or 2002. Was it not like part of the cultural like thinking, or was it already? And these guys just proved that the Catholic Church or the clergy or whoever the higher ups knew about it. Was that the big bombshell?
I'm curious what Brad and Scott say here, because I'm actually now like second guessing my initial instinct.
I thought the O'Grady like thing was. I thought that was like mid 90s.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, it
so
is.
It's
yeah.
like
things broke before this. They just.
It was never all. It was always like, oh, that's just a bad
that was
apple.
A one-off, right? Okay, so
we'll
that
get
was their
rid of them.
story,
Well,
right?
this is the point. I mean, in the movie, right, they depict the Porter case, which is the one that sort of like is this background case from the early 90s where they kind of miss it, right? They miss the story at the time, which is, and it itself like provokes the revelation that there are like 20 priests, and so I think it was in the sort of cultural like lexicon that, oh, that's kind of a, but you know what I think it is, and maybe this is just because, we were all bad people back then. But it was a joke, like all the terrible things we joked about in some way, right? Like all the hurtful things that we think now, like, damn,
right.
Like I wish I hadn't been made light of that. But I think, it was the Catholic priest and the little boy was like, a punchline, right? In a way. And I'm sure for a lot of people it was very personal and didn't feel like a punchline, but it certainly was like part of the.
So it was definitely a thing before these guys broke this story.
Yes.
It was a thing.
Yeah.
But I think the reason that it, even as much as like I think there was less sensitivity then anyway, it was also partly a punchline then and not now, because I think it was seen as like a sort of like one-off thing. It wasn't seen as like this systematic exploitation that was happening institutionally, and I think that was what the Spotlight team does in the early 2000s. But I mean, I guess the one question I have that I can't yet totally answer for myself is like, why is this movie one that I'm drawn to and to watch over and over again, given the content? Because usually I'm not somebody that wants to see heavy shit.
That's my question for you. You said you'd watched it.
I've
numerous
watched
times.
a bunch of times.
I think it's when you see professional people doing very professional work to take down some really atrocious things, like you're always rooting for that. Like, I mean, that comes in so many forms, and in this case it happens to be dealing with a very obviously sensitive and terrible topic. But when you see those professional people they're just going about their jobs and they're very focused and they're working together, and it's there's like no bullshit in the movie. They don't have to like over dramatize anything, because it's just like these people realized what they were trying to do and they put their whole heart into it, and I think it's easy to root for. So it's like you just kind of get behind them. You're like, fuck yeah, let's get these dudes.
And maybe even not only like, I think you nailed it. And I think, what it is over and over again, and it feels oddly personal to me, even though I don't have any direct experience. I'm not Catholic. I never was. I don't actually have, a lot of like close contact with people that I know of that are survivors of, of sexual abuse as children. But somehow like it feels personal. Like I feel very grateful, I think. I feel equal parts enraged and grateful. And that's all, like I actually have some real misgivings about reporters, and like think that there's a lot of media people that, not only in the modern era of like sort of media gone awry, but like all through time, like there are real personalities and types of reporters that I find really like off-putting. But man, like I watched that and I definitely feel okay. Like they saved a bunch of people. Like they really did. And like it feels like that every time I watch it.
Yeah, and that's something about this that really stood out to me, was the fact that this is reporting the way it should be. And we're in a time now where it seems like there isn't reporting anymore. It's just get the story, get the headline, throw it on Twitter, just get clicks instantly now without finding sources and facts.
And that's one of the big storylines of the movie, right? Is Michael Michael Crichton.
Michael Crichton.
When the dinosaurs came out,
What's his name?
Crichton makes a rare appearance in this. Yeah.
But Batman's like
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton's like. He's like, no, like we have to wait, like we have to make sure, like we got.
Right.
I don't want to get
yeah.
these guys.
I want
like,
a second source.
like
or internal
freaking,
source.
Lee
right, but
Schreiber's like, no, we have to get that from the top down, right?
And this gets into my body bag a little bit, but just the idea that back then it was we can't let them go to press, which would be the paper coming out that next morning. You had a little bit more time to work versus whoever gets that first like tweet out or that first like.
But they were
their
dealing with that in some way,
webpage updated
because he was so worried about the other paper
Herald,
like getting onto their story and breaking it first, which is kind of weird. I mean, I guess they wanted to be the ones to break it.
Well, they kept saying they wanted to make sure they didn't screw it up.
Did it the right way,
Yeah.
right? I get you.
Butcher it.
That might be. I mean, I felt like that was maybe one of the few contrived, like non-nuanced pieces of the movie. Was that it seemed
Could have been
forced in some way, but
One thing I thought was a little heavy-handed was when they're showing the Boston Globe and there was that AOL billboard.
It was everywhere.
It was like AOL worldwide, and then it was like just right there next to the Boston Globe. And I have to assume that was intentional. If there was really an AOL billboard there, then like good job by them. But the whole point, it was just like, here's the future and here's the old press. Like just it was that little
that's what
dynamic
you took from it.
Oh yeah, it was like intentionally put there just to kind of show that like, oh, the internet's coming. And
I thought they were just
we
like,
still got the old guard right here.
we only have so much budget. Let's make it look like 2000.
I didn't make that connection either. I just thought they were just dating it. Like
Exactly.
saying, hey,
No.
look,
I definitely thought of
that's-
internet versus old media. So
I mean, so two more things I want to say. I mean, obviously, if you guys have more before we move to the drinking, but one thing is we can't sleep on the acting here, right? We've talked a lot about the story. I mean, it's a true story that's compelling. They stick to it really well. It's a well-made movie. Obviously, wins Best Picture. It's like an absolute showcase, not just of the stars, right, which are great. Right, Michael Crichton's great in it as a dinosaur wrangler. I love Ruffalo. I mean, I think there's some people on the rewatchables that think it was a bit of an overact. I think I'm a Ruffalo guy. Like he can do almost no wrong for me. So I don't think you are.
I have to say, as somebody who listened to the Rewatchables podcast, I still do, and the idea that they had said that that's like the overacting, and so I'd never seen the movie, and so I was just like, oh yeah, he must just go pretty ape shit. It's not ape
perfect.
shit. It's just like it's about as proper as it seems like it should be for that situation, for what's going on.
So I hate Ruffalo. I really don't like him in anything. I kind of liked him in this movie. I don't think he overacts. He doesn't overdo the accent at all. They even make a comment about him not overdoing the accent.
He holds his mouth in this weird way and his head cocked weird way, but it works.
Now, have you seen the Michael Resendez, the actual Michael Resendez like video?
No.
Like, if you watch video of him, like he has that same kind of like he really was trying to do it as like mimicking him.
Yeah, they all got together with the real people. All got together with the actors.
Yeah,
they worked with him.
Very much mimicking.
He's an excitable dude with ADHD that's like it gets excited about shit. You can tell. Like he's into it. He's also really motivated. Like he said he was married, but they never actually show his wife, do they? Do they ever show his wife?
Nope.
No.
You're talking about the character.
I mean, I'm saying Ruffalo portraying the character. Like
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty realistic in the guy that's like super gung ho and talking back to his boss and freaking Jurassic Park dude's
He's the one dude
done.
that's still on the Spotlight team. I think when the movie came out, or at least when the movie came out, he was still on the Spotlight.
I think he still is. Yeah, he's, I contacted him to see if he'd come on. No response yet.
Oh, for real?
At Spotlight.
He's like, I'm working on a story, bro.
That's all I'm going to deep dive. Right
He's
now.
like, is this a lead? No, it's a podcast. Fuck this.
Who's Bev and what's her kingdom about? Okay, so you hadn't seen it, Brad? Before?
I had not seen it.
And you had, Scott.
I had not.
Oh, you had not.
I also had not seen
no
it.
shit. So none of the okay. So let me
Best
get
Picture winners. I mean, why would we watch those?
Yeah, you guys.
I'm famous for not watching.
I'm on a
this.
movie podcast. I don't got time for that.
Garbage. Okay, so just quickly, like, you liked it though?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny that I don't like seek out these movies, but anytime I watch a movie where it's like a very good writing and it doesn't have to have action or anything, and it's just like either a courtroom style drama or this is like I'm in a newsroom type drama, like I actually really dig those movies, but I never seek them out. So when I see them, I'm like, oh, dude,
Probably because I tell you they're good. So
yeah,
you don't, yeah.
More than likely, but yeah, no. So I mean, it's an enjoyable movie, and in fact, I was just I asked my dad tonight. I was like, "Have you seen it?" And he's like, "No." And I was like, "Okay, you should check it out. You'll really dig it." So,
What have you liked it, Scott?
Absolutely loved it. I mean, obviously the subject matter is atrocious, but it's just so well made. The acting's amazing. Like some of these actors are some of my favorite actors working, and I love the fact that, you know, sometimes they say this is based on a true story or this is whatever it says. This is a real story. And like, I think I was kind of expecting like them to throw in the old, somebody's a mole on the inside, like derailing everything. And like, or a thug was going to show up and tell them to stop, you know, whatever. And that doesn't happen. That's not what this movie's about. It's real. And it's super interesting to see the process and how they do things. And I just absolutely really enjoyed it. And at the end, I was crying because it was just, you get so wrapped up in the emotions. Yeah. Especially at the very end, they list all the places across the fucking world. And
like 5 of them are within 2 hours of here.
Totally. Yeah.
I saw Monterey, California.
I saw Stockton.
Stockton's in there.
Yeah, we're gonna go on to that. So
I did not love it. So I typically stay away from, like, I don't read any nonfiction books. I don't typically, I mean, Zodiac aside, I feel like this was like a really watered down Zodiac. I didn't want them to show what happened to these kids, but I thought maybe there would be some flashbacks. I thought there would be maybe more concentration or like some characters. Like they show the one priest who's like obviously senile or out of his mind in some way, but they don't have any of that side. There's really very little coming from that side. And
you wanted Fincher to direct this.
I literally had written down Fincher Zodiac question mark. But what it is like, I didn't feel the punch at the end. I just felt like, okay, the story released, they kind of like are getting a bunch of phone calls. And I mean, I guess that's supposed to represent that all these people are coming out now because of the story that they did. And I get that, but like, we don't get to see anyone be punished. Like we don't get to see, like these people did horrible. Like I've got 3 small kids. Like Nate said, like it makes me viscerally want to hurt people and know. And you don't see it at all.
I think the answer is,
you didn't watch Spotlight 2?
I think.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying, though.
Spotlight 2. The punishment of the priests.
Yeah, but I mean anything. Like there's no, like you don't get to see the cardinal like sitting in his thing being all cocky.
No, he got an upgrade. He got upgraded to.
That's the problem.
I think you don't see it because it doesn't happen. I mean,
well, then that angers me even more. I don't feel good about the end. I feel more pissed about it. So
Alicia, let's get. I think we're going to head right there. So that's a great transition. Okay, so we're going to move on, and as we usually do, our second segment is drinking with the director, but sometimes we have somebody other than the director on, and in this case, we've been up for a long time wanting to have on our friend Justin. And so Justin was the person who sent us Hot Shot, and unfortunately, we weren't able to do Hot Shot tonight.
Sorry, bud.
So instead, he got Spotlight. So Justin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
I'm super
yeah.
excited to be on the show.
I'm so excited you're here.
Can I start with something?
Yes, please.
You have butchered the name that I sent you.
What was it?
It was Hot Spot.
Oh, Hot Spot.
There's a big difference there.
There is. I can see where you're going
Still
with that.
inaccurate, but Hot Spot is
Such a worse title for
Hot
this
Shot.
movie.
That makes so much more sense, though. Yep.
We should
Hot
consider
Spot.
we should consider that as a possible retitle for this. Not Spotlight, Hot Spot. So Justin, so part of the funny, So part of the funny is like we were sure Justin's like a big alien guy. Would you say you're an alien guy?
UFO.
UFO. Oh,
There's a difference.
is there a difference?
There's a big difference.
What's the difference?
Yes. Well, I mean, UFO is unidentified flying object, right?
Okay.
Alien is
You know what it is.
everything else out there. Who knows?
Identified.
So I do want to clarify that this is a very hot spot in my entire body when I see a movie like this. So
Okay.
that's
All
why
right. So you were
It's
talking about
very-
the hot spot. You get all worked up and heated because you're like mad.
I get very mad.
Hot spot.
I rage.
Yes, but at
Okay.
the same time, like Nate, you were not raised in the Catholic Church or really any church too hardcore, correct?
I'm a like lapsed, not that committed Methodist, I'd say.
Okay, my mom and my sister would go to the Presbyterian church, kind of on and off. Never forced me or asked me to go ever. I think I was asked to go once. I said no, I don't want to go, and then I was never asked again. My dad always claimed that he went to the Church of the Links, which was the golf course on Sunday morning. Brad, church, no church?
like more like Easter Christmas church, but
Okay.
like every once in a while we'd go because we had some like family and stuff that they were a lot more big into the church. And I remember very much as a little kid seeing somebody speak in tongues for the first time.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was like immediately like, okay, this shit is wild and not for me.
Scott?
I believe in the Church of Baseball.
Okay, so yeah. So Scott, but you're a Dodger fan, which is even fucking weirder.
Right. So
Let's talk about speaking in tongues.
as a kid, I did go. I'm a lapsed Methodist as well.
Okay.
And there's actually something that happened at our church that is topically topical. So,
Oh my goodness.
Wait, which Methodist? Do you go the one?
in Houston,
Oh,
I know the church.
before your time, buddy.
I've heard of
no,
this.
I
Yeah.
think
incident.
I just heard about this. Yeah,
Okay.
there
Yes.
was some abuse there. Yeah.
Yep.
So
That I
so
had
Justin
forgot about.
so Justin it didn't surprise me when Justin picked Hotspot because you were pretty much raised in the Catholic Church. You guys were going every Sunday, catechism, all that stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Catechism, confirm, baptism, communion, altar boy, you name it, all the way through 8th grade.
So you were an altar boy.
Yes. I was an altar boy for at least a year that I know of. I mean, it's hard to go back and know the time frame, but at least a year, if not 2 to
Okay.
3 years. Catechism was full until 8th grade.
Right.
Communion, went through that, and then baptism at a later age, not when I was a baby, but a later age.
Now maybe you can speak on this. Like I coach baseball, and I've had kids all throughout baseball that are like, "Hey, if we got games on Wednesdays, I can't come to the game. I have catechism," which is so weird to me because in my life growing up, like if I had a baseball game, it would trump literally everything, anything and everything that was going on. And my parents would get me to that baseball game no matter what. But these parents are like, "No, it's catechism. It's important. He has to be there." So was it like that for you? Was it?
You know, I don't remember missing a lot of sporting events. Definitely not events, but practices. I think they just made it work. I think catechism was something like if you missed one time slot, you can make the other time slot.
Oh, okay.
Or if you
Interesting.
missed a day, you're still going like, I don't know, 3 days a week or something like that. For the record, it was the worst experience. I mean, as a boy, you have to think about real quick, like who the background and like the philosophy of teachers nowadays, period, like the majority of teachers, right? Well, think about who's teaching you in catechism and their beliefs and their philosophy and their experiences. And like, that's what you're experiencing as a boy that's just trying to get their energy out. And you're being thrown
Sit
a
there,
book,
don't
sit
move.
down.
Yeah.
This is what we're learning about. And you have a ton of questions because even as a child, you're like, some of this stuff doesn't make any sense. And anyway, it was a surreal experience, but for me, it was all normal. You got to know that this is
Well, you
how
didn't
I
know
was
anything
raised.
else, right?
I didn't
Yeah.
know anything else.
Well, speaking to that, so they talk about, I mean, kind of the grooming and stuff, and like, I mean, how they make you feel special. Like when you were was being an altar boy something that like your parents wanted you to do, or was it like something like it's like, oh, I'm an all-star, like, oh look, I got chosen for the all-stars, like I'm an altar boy, like is that, or like were you pumped about it? Were you excited about it? Did it make you feel special, or how did that go?
I think that you guys know that I was always just kind of going with the flow. And so I was, all of a sudden I'm there and this is the moment and this is your shining moment. This is what you're going to do. Okay. Like, let's go. No. And I didn't know anybody else. I think we were too young
I
to
could just see Justin
anybody want to do this.
getting ready to walk out, and he's just like, "Let's go! Come on,
get those hands in, get those hands in.
Ultra Boys on 2.
I mean, everything was God. So this was like the highest thing you could do at the time as a kid is just open that book for the Father, bring him the wine and, go around the cloths and all that stuff. Like you were serving God at that time as a child. That's all you can think about.
So I guess I feel like I don't want to like false lead, right? You were never abused, right? And
No.
that's not where we're headed. But you were an altar boy, and the priest that was when you were an altar boy was Oliver O'Grady, who infamously, it came out, sometime around that time that he had abused a number of children, not just in the church that you were in, but like in Stockton and in Turlock. And so, I mean, did you knew him? He was the priest when you were the altar boy?
Yeah, so he was one of the priests. We
Okay.
had several priests go through during that stint that I was
Yeah.
in catechism and also an altar boy, but he was one of them. He was the last one that I went through.
And they made a documentary about him called Deliver Us from Evil. Is that
Delivers from Evil gives me the chills just thinking about it.
Yeah, and that one actually I think was nominated or won for best documentary, or maybe the director won for best director documentary.
And we're talking about a guy who had just a very kindly Irish accent, right? Like just
Yes. Well, again, it really didn't matter like what he looked like or what his accent was or his mannerism. He was God. Like that's what you have to think about when you're a kid or even parents, in the church. Like he is resembling God. So everything he does is right.
Well, and they make this point in Spotlight, right? And it's an interesting problem that's unique to the Catholic Church or semi-unique, right? In that a lot of, as most people, many people might know, but right, like in a lot of churches, God and parishioners can have direct, the belief is, right, you can have direct contact through prayer and so forth. And in the Catholic Church, priests are the mouth of God, right? Like, priests are the communicating vessels for the parishioners to God.
I could be speaking out of school here, but they even have the ability to forgive your sins, right? I mean, they give you your penance or whatever you're supposed to do in order to be
confession
cleaned of your sins. Is that correct or incorrect? I'm not sure.
Yeah, every week.
Yeah.
So you've done confession a bunch?
Yes.
Crazy.
All through that.
I've never done it.
And you need to think about it in this realm too. Who are you confessing to?
Yeah.
And what's he hearing? And
he knows everything about you.
Right.
Or he knows all your thoughts.
and everybody else too.
Yeah.
And everybody else's.
Yeah.
Gosh,
But-
that's a brilliant trick.
So all your vulnerabilities, all your like dirty thoughts, all the things that someone would need if they were going to prey on you to try to manipulate you, you're laying out to this person,
Laying them out.
who is then
Oh, wow.
structured within the church, if you're a believer, to be somebody who is capable of doing no wrong because they are acting on the sort of orders of and
Yes.
with the mouthpiece of God.
And you're giving them a roadmap, right? Right, how to get you.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where when they have the percentages at the end, they say that the percentages of pedophilia in the Catholic Church was on par with the numbers outside of the church as well, like in society. I understand that, but at the same time, it's the access that those people have that changes the whole script. Because if you're just average dude out like trying to do some molesting, it's like, okay, you gotta do some active. But if you got people coming to you constantly and they believe that you're in a position of power, I mean that whole dynamic is different.
Well, and this is why, like Zach and I were talking beforehand. I'm like, what should I say this? And Zach was right on point. And my reaction to this every time, like I literally have a few days where I'll talk to, I'll watch this movie and then I'll say to anyone who's around, that movie makes me think we should make sure we clear out all the churches and we should burn them all the Catholic churches down. Like we should burn the entire, every building, all the infrastructure. We should take all their shit. We should tell them you're no longer a church. Congratulations. Like go find
all
something
their
else to
golden
do.
treasures.
But the reason, right, for me to feel so enraged about this, and I feel that way a lot. I mean, we should, and can talk about other things that are similar, like, USA Gymnastics or Michigan State Athletics,
yes.
which I find fucking terrible.
Boy Scouts just came
Boy
out.
Scouts, yeah. But as I see this movie, it made me understand some of the arguments around those things where people would say, you have to dismantle the entire thing and take everyone who's involved and invested in it and the whole apparatus and break it completely down. Because no one that's on the inside of it apparently was able to, and the thing itself was structured in such a way that they couldn't make the correct choice to protect the right people. You look at the Catholic Church and it's not only that, but it's also exactly one step further than that, which is they structured the whole thing so that it created the conditions for this to be maximized, right? Like exactly what we're talking about.
Like priests can't get married. Priests are supposed to be celibate.
Let's take them a bunch of people and oppress them, make them and then let's give them total unfettered access and make them deity-like. Total access to kids, make parents naturally trust them, have them have the confessional, opportunity. And then, right on top of, as if all that, could be, obviously that's all accidental, and you could sort of look at that and go, yeah, but it wasn't designed for pedophilia, and then see it happen and go, oh, we need to move these guys around so that we don't look bad. I'm just like, you got to burn the whole thing down. It's there, and I'm not talking about Catholic parishioners here. I'm not, there's lots of believers that believe and for their own reasons, I have no particular commentary on people that are not within the organization of the church. But the priests and the people that made those choices and the institution itself, right?
That protected those.
That protected the
Yes, that's the
institution and the
problem.
people that inhabit it administratively.
Right.
I have no apology for saying that the worst thing should happen.
I was thinking about just as human beings, though. It's like if it would, all of us have played on sports teams, and it's like if you knew that one of your teammates was cheating or doing something wrong that might get them like removed from the game or kicked out of the game, or if you're in school and like you see them doing something that could get them maybe suspended or something, like, oh, they wouldn't be able to play on Friday or whatever. It's like, I know, as tough as it, like, as much as we want to say like, oh, we always would do the right thing, it's just like some of us would definitely turn a blind eye, like, well, we kind of need them for our game. So I guess I'm just not going to say anything about this. I'm not going to speak up about it. And obviously this is on a completely different level, but it's just saying, just within human nature, it's just sometimes that's the way we behave. When
it'd be the easy way out. I mean, it's human nature to take the easy way out. I mean, I wonder how much of it is like predicated, like the Catholic Church is like built upon this foundation of however you sin, if you confess, you will be forgiven for those sins, right? So then the question that I always ask myself is like, at what point does that stop? Like, what sin is bad enough?
It never stops.
That's what I mean. So like, you would think that like, oh, pedophilia is like, that's like a level where, you know, we're not going to forgive you for that one. Like, you can do all of these bad things, but once you get to a certain level, like, okay, now we got to kick you out, right? I mean, I would think that would be it, but it doesn't seem like that's the way it works.
So I'll go a step further and say that the biggest problem, I think, is not that they intentionally did all this stuff, but the belief that God was going to fix them.
That he was going to forgive them, right?
And that's what I have a huge problem with, is that they handled everything in-house and then moved it thinking, we forgive you of your sins. You have confessed. We know your problem. We're going to send you somewhere else, a new environment, and we're going to relieve you of your sins now. You do better. God is with you. And that notion of like that, you know, it's like COVID, like, or being homosexual, like you're going to pray the gay way. You're not going to pray the gay way.
Right.
It's not going to happen. And so that, to me, I have a huge problem with that, because it's so naive to think that, especially with this subject in this realm.
Right. Yeah, and I think that gets right to Brad's point about, you know, I mean, two follows on those things. One, the stakes are so high here, right, that makes what makes it unforgivable, right? Like, you have to look at it and go, I mean, I have to look at it and hopefully believe myself that if that there's a real important categorical difference between what I would be willing and able to do if I saw somebody abusing a child versus missing school so they couldn't play in a sporting event, right? Like, those two things for me, you know, I have to, and even like, you know, I've been a coach, right? So I've coached, you know, high school sports. So I can like directly, you know, see the analog. If I were to see a kid that was ditching school, you know, can I imagine a scenario where like I was really torn about whether to, you know, turn him in because I didn't want to miss that night's game? Yeah. Well, I'm not saying I would do it. I'm not saying it would be an easy choice. I wouldn't or wouldn't do it. But I can see like the dilemma being a real one there for me. I genuinely hope that I would look at that and I would go, oh, there's an assistant coach abusing somebody, but I know that guy and he's really nice. Fuck that. Like, I hope I would just totally run him up the flagpole.
But that's the whole point, right? There's levels to this shit, but apparently in the Catholic Church, there's not.
Well,
all
do you think
sins are equal in God's eyes,
or
right?
do you think it has something to do with the fact that none of these gentlemen who are doing it, and they mentioned nuns doing abuse as well, but I mean, some of these guys obviously not have any kids. Like, does that just maybe make it different in their eyes, the fact that they don't have children? Because I know as being a father, it's just like I get just irate thinking about somebody doing any type of intentional harm to my kid. Like, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say no. Scott, you don't have kids?
No.
And how do you feel about that?
I want to kick some ass.
Yeah.
No. I'm not saying like, I'm saying just within the institution, all those guys,
they systematically don't. But I'm just saying, like, my guess is that my guess is that with that, like, it just doesn't, like, I feel that way about my own kids, but the truth is, like, for me personally, like, I don't actually think about my own kids in that. Like, not that I ever would want that to happen to them, but I'm not watching that movie going, like, I'm enraged because that could happen to my kids. I'm like, I just think, you know, for me, it's
a kid.
Like, I just have such a problem
or
with
the
that.
kids that don't have the family structure
That's
that
exactly
you
what
are
it is.
able to give your kids, and you're like, oh, I could totally see how that would happen to that kid because he doesn't have a father figure. He's looking for that. Yeah, exactly.
So, but
and then have that trust just completely betrayed.
That kid's already fucked. You know what I mean? And now it's just they're just doubling down on ruining those kids. You know what I mean?
So not just ruining those kids, but now we're talking about a system that they're creating and ruining other kids as well. Because as you saw with the priest that John, whatever his name was in the movie, the actor, he went and saw that priest. It was clearly not right in the head, the older guy, and he said, "I've been raped."
Right.
I've been raped.
I was abused too.
Right.
Yeah, so it's
Right.
okay. And I didn't get any pleasure out of it. I gave pleasure. Like, he was so just
delusional about it.
And I don't know, they didn't really say if he was still like a practicing Catholic or not or whatever, but it's just like the fact that he felt like, oh, I've confessed the sin, I've talked, so he like openly talked about it, like, I've confessed this, like, hey, I can talk about it now, and didn't have any like shame about it or anything. Is like, oh, that sin's been absolved, like it's gone.
So to throw this for a loop though, like the other side of what I was going to say, and again, like I'll burn the whole Catholic Church down. So I'm not trying to excuse the church for this.
The institution now. Let's use the word
The
institution.
institution. Yeah, I don't mean the parishioners, but I
You're
mean
not hoping that they're on Sunday Mass.
No. I'm saying like empty buildings steal all their gold. Yeah. So what I'm saying though is like the flip side of this, you know, when we think about this with the Holocaust and like the follow on the Holocaust, there's like some social science research that itself is problematic, but like the Stanley Milgram experiments where they have people come into a lab and they tell people that they're shocking somebody as part of the experiment, and the person is like thinks they're shocking someone, and then they're supposed to turn up the voltage and there's like an authority figure telling them to turn up the voltage and shock, and they get to the point in these experiments where they shock people that are, so they think they're not really happening, but they think someone's screaming in pain that they're shocking because an authority figure tells them. And so you get, you know, like, you see that there's the Stanford prison experiments that have like sort of a similar, you know, like dynamic. And one of the things that you see and you learn from this, and probably the very fact that like it's not just the Catholic Church, but we have lots of examples of institutions full of people that probably can't just all be evil, right? I mean, this is the problem with the church. There's a whole bunch of people that are causing this problem that are not pedophiles. Most of the people that are causing this problem are not pedophiles. There are people that are protecting an organization.
Protecting and perpetuating.
That's the biggest problem with this that makes it worse.
Exactly.
Because like Brad said, the percentage to the general public is actually 6%, which any percent is fucking too much, of course. But it's not an anomaly as far as there's more, like a bigger percentage of Catholics just happen to do it. But the biggest problem is they're getting away with it. They're getting moved around and then doing it to more fucking people.
Right.
They're being given fresh batches of victims.
Exactly. And they're in a perfect situation to get away with it.
And that's more evil because honestly, a lot of these priests are sick because maybe they have been abused. Maybe something's happened in the past. That's why that one guy totally said, it's okay because I was abused.
Right.
I didn't take any pleasure in it. It's okay. And he totally thought that. And it's an actual mental thing. And that happened in the Houston case in Methodist Church. And I don't want to get too into the weeds in it, but if you look it up online, you can find all the information. The whole case is online. You can look it up. But the main victim in that case, acted out on his own sister because he had been preyed on.
That's what I was talking about earlier. Right. And to follow up on that, I'd read a quote from the sources that the journalists had in this movie. Do not get enough credit. The sources that they came across were absolutely amazing. One of the sources said, when a priest does this to you, he robs you of your faith. So you reach for the bottle or the needle. And if that doesn't work, you jump off a fucking bridge.
Right.
And if you're not doing that, like, who are you impacting along the way? Are you having kids yourself or nieces or nephews, or what occupation you in? Like, who is on the same road you're on? You know, what are your pit stops? And that's the system that they're developing by not confronting this issue, by just passing it on.
And I mean, pedophilia has been described as a disease, right? So like so someone preys on you and then it fucks your mind in a way that statistically is more probable for you to go on and prey on someone else, right? Yeah. And that kind of just goes and goes and goes. And especially in the Catholic Church, you're just spreading it around. You're taking these people that have done these atrocious things, and then you're just shipping them off to somewhere else, and then now they're starting an infection over here in the Northeast, and then you're sending them off to the West Coast.
I don't want to say that the pedophilia itself is bad, but I just personally think that covering it up and making it worse is, to me, more evil because it's intentional. I mean, they're both evil as fuck.
And to me, right, that's the thesis of the movie. Whether or not it was true, I mean, I don't know whether or not that's truly Spotlight's thesis, right? I mean, in terms of like, the real story. But clearly the movie wants to make the case and make the point, and they do so, I think, really effectively, that the reporting is only effective if it exposes the system that hides it, right? Like, even the idea that it happens prevalently, right, is an easy thing to sort of like dismiss as like, well, those are people that are sick that we can't fix, right? I mean, I think that's what you guys are talking about is the underlying sort of thread that's concern that like creates this real discomfort, which is, we can't exactly we probably can't fix people that are pedophiles if they're going to prey on, if they're going to act on that urge, we're at a little bit of a loss. So the question is like, how do we protect kids and from it? How do we prevent it from happening, especially with such ease? And so they go, okay, well this, and this is why, I think that's the complication of it is we are constantly worried that an organization of people who are not pedophiles and who are probably people that don't think of themselves as evil for some reason find a rationale to hide it and to make it okay. And we see, like I said, we see that at Michigan State with their athletics department and with the same doctor with USA Gymnastics.
What about the old guy at Penn?
Yeah, well, exactly. So Penn State football.
Sandusky.
Yeah, we see that. Yeah, I mean, and it's the downfall of sort of a legacy, coach at Penn State. I mean,
well, O'Grady, the one we were talking about earlier, I mean, I looked that he had problems in other places and then eventually ended up somewhere in Europe and then just recently was like busted on child pornography.
Yeah.
And it's like,
can you speak on O'Grady's timeline?
So I think it was like the 5th or 6th church that he went to. Like I was the dead end for him.
Right. He was technically still a priest. In fact, I read that at St. Anthony's he resigned, and in the bulletin it said he resigned because of
he was
undisclosed
actively
sexual.
We saw him on TV.
Allegations.
We were his altar boy. And the next thing you know, we saw him in an orange jumpsuit on TV. That's how crazy that was.
And you weren't abused, but you said that you felt like you were being groomed. I mean,
yeah, speak on that.
If we talk about how they mentioned in the movie too, how they preyed on kids, how they knew their background. Obviously, there's confessions being done, but they're looking for a divorced family. They're looking for a single parent. They're looking for something tragic that's happened. Something where the parents maybe they're neglecting the kid or they're not as involved.
Or they're not paying close attention.
They're not paying that close attention. They're looking for a lot of time they can get, and they start putting fillers out there. They start having conversation that goes over the line, and they start wrestling or whatever, or tickling.
Yeah.
And that was what occurred in my case, where he started tickling my stomach. I remember specifically this happening and thinking that was kind of weird, and just kind of brushed it off, whatever. And then I told my mom that day what had happened. And not that she stopped me going there, she just thought it was weird, right? So she was a little bit more active, like showing herself, displaying just a parental role. And shortly after that, he was in an orange jumpsuit. Like that was it.
Damn, dude.
And it gives me the creeps because I was that close. And if you watch the documentary that you were alluding to, Deliver from Evil, like this guy held kids down. Like that's, there's some like in Spotlight, they're talking about, it was a conversation, and it was like strip poker or something like that. And then he talked me into this, or he touched me. There's some that just hold
like
people
forcibly
down.
raping kids. Yeah.
Well, and one of the heaviest scenes for me, right, and like this sort of resonates. We're a bunch of athletes, around the table and played a lot of sports at both youth and high school and things.
last week he had an impeccable frame in high school. Now we're all athletes. I like it.
Well, I said we were all athletes. I said we're all athletes, and I was an athlete, and the rest of you guys sometimes played sports.
No, I was happy to be on that bus.
we were all friends of an athlete.
I was stoked. I'm getting called an athlete.
So there's the scene in the movie where he he talks to the guy that was a hockey player and had been abused. That was around his. This is the Michael Crichton. Sorry, that's Michael Keaton. Robbie Robinson, Michael Keaton. And so he comes back and he's meeting with the people at the administrators of the old high school, and he sort of says like, "Did you play sports? You played football. I ran track." And he's like, I guess we got lucky. We just didn't happen to play hockey. And it's one of those things, like, to your point, right? Like, you look for vulnerabilities, but like you weren't a kid that would have been described by any of those things at that time, but he still tickled you. You know what I mean? Like it was still you kind of feel like, you don't know, right? Like you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's not that these kids were necessarily all, just particularly vulnerable. It's just some were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And you feel, it's even worse in some ways, right? That, like you were saying, Zach, that it was like he did, these priests did look for people that were vulnerable, and to me that, and I've, in other venues, right, like that, makes me even more upset. But
it's crazy to me that the Catholics, I mean, this stuff was going on, and I mean, maybe it was kind of more apparent, and as time went on, obviously people started to get more in tune with it. But the Mormons, I mean, when they found out about polygamy and stuff, I mean, people went apeshit, and like they were making laws against it, and like, I mean, basically are trying to like almost destroy the Mormon church.
That's because it's relatively new. The Catholic was institutionalized for so long that people were like, oh, my grandpa's grandpa believed in this, and I've believed in it for my whole life. And then when you hear about this new Mormonism or whatever, I mean, people are like, what?
I think just for me, like growing up, just hearing like, oh, like there might be people describe Mormons as like, oh, they're the crazy ones and stuff. And it was just like bizarre to me that like that people from opposing religions would be like, oh yeah, they're the crazy ones. And it's like, man, they all got their distasteful
Have you
shit.
read your stories, bro? I was like, oh my God.
Well, like crazy in general, we talk about all these other incidents in sports and whatnot, but Jeffrey Epstein was the biggest story in the world for a while, at least in this country for sure, right? It can't touch the scandal.
Right. I mean, in terms of the scale.
It can't even touch it.
100%.
Yeah.
That's the magnitude of this movie or Spotlight or, the journalists. And just everything about it. That's why I liked it so much.
And that just goes to show. So I think that just goes to show that if this country was predominantly 98% billionaires, that probably wouldn't have been that big a story, because it would have hit home for everybody that's also a billionaire, and they would have been like, oh yeah, whatever. But when it happens in something like the Catholic Church, it's that exact reaction, right? Like, oh no, like I'm Catholic. You know what I mean? It's like, in order to condemn the Catholic Church, if you're Catholic, you're condemning yourself, right? Like we were talking about earlier, like. What was the quote that I quoted earlier? Like it's easier to convince a man that he's been conned than to convince, or it's easier to con
to trick a man than to convince him that he's been tricked.
Right. So they're like, I'm sure that everybody that heard these things, especially devout Catholics, were like, again, just like the higher ups were like, oh, this is just a one-off. This is a bad seed. Blah blah blah. They didn't know that they were shuffling them around.
Well, I mean, I think that certainly would have been true, prior to the Spotlight story. I mean, I have the impression from, obviously I have a limited sample of Catholics that I know well enough to have this conversation, but I certainly know some Catholics whose attitude has stayed in the church, but who are, very eyes wide open about the scandal, and their reaction, I think at least some of their reaction is, we want to try to change this from the inside, right? It's a lot easier to, we care about this thing, and we want to try to make it better by getting rid of that, and we can affect that from the inside, not the outside. And I think, it goes right to that point, right? To some extent, it probably robs a lot of those people their faith too, right? I mean, especially given that, the status of priests.
Speaking of that too, the side stories of all these journalists, I thought were super intriguing. How the movie portrayed it. The accuracy of this film is like no other. It's so factual, right? But what these guys were all going through individually now, for me, Mark Ruffalo, like what he went through, how he got so emotional in that scene, right? And then, he's screaming, yelling F-bombs. We need to do it right now. And then he meets with
Sasha, yeah.
Yeah, Rachel McAdams is doing it. And he meets with her, and he kind of has a heart-to-heart. And this touched home with me because he says, I thought I'd go back to the Catholic Church at one time. So he starts questioning everything. I went through that. I 100% went through that. And not that I went through it after I saw the dude in the orange jumpsuit. I went through it later on in life and thinking, I don't think I'll ever go back. Not that I'm not spiritual, not that I won't believe in something, but Catholicism, I don't know if I'll go back. That is a rude awakening. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Especially like Nate said, and the other guy said in the movie, like he's robbing these kids and robbing people of their faith, right? So it's like, even though Ruffalo's character, he wasn't a practicing Catholic, he always had in the back of his mind, he always had faith that he was going to be able to go back to that, and it was going to be some sort of a comfort to him. And now it's gone. He doesn't have that anymore.
And Sasha, she was going to church with her nana,
right.
And then the more she got into the story, she just couldn't do it anymore. And then just that whole scene when she's showing the newspaper and the nana's reading the article, it's just like you're sitting there, that the Nana's finally, and she's trying to convince herself. You kind of see her going, what am I reading? It's just like, it was just really crazy because she's got a lifetime of what she thinks is right in her face, saying, no, this thing's falling apart, and you're part of it. And can you imagine, like being told that, and what's interesting is, the whole Boston is, very Catholic, community. And the one scene that was really interesting to me and very telling was when Marty, Liev Schreiber's character, was talking to his publisher, talking about the story. And what was one of the first things the publisher says? You realize that 53% of our readers are Catholic, right?
Right.
First thing he thinks of is dollar signs. It's like, dude, we can't print a story about this. And it's like, that kind of shows you the mentality of a lot of these people. It's like, no, it's our thing. It's Catholic. We can't screw this up. You can't, So it was like, that's their first thought. That's kind of a crazy thing to think about.
Well, and they they have that even sort of later in the film. He says, when they're in that conversation with the people, the guys at the high school, and there's the publicist that comes in. He says, well, let's all get on the same page. We'll get on the same page. He's like, is that what we're trying to do?
Right.
The idea is like we're all here. We're all Catholic. We just got to figure out how we're going to. Everybody wants to spin this properly, right?
So the entire community is attempting to do what the Catholic Church does and is being condemned for in the movie. Like everybody in the community is like, oh no, let's kind of look the other way. No, it's all right. Let's kind of push this to the background.
It's a little different with the community though, because they don't know the facts. They just probably don't want to believe it. But the clergy and everybody, all the higher ups, they know what happened, and that's what's different with that.
It was like my dad's football team with all the championships when he was just passing out roids left and right to all the players. And Houston was just turning its blind eye because they were winning championships. Like, hey, we're getting blue banners.
We win titles,
Hey, if there's some roids getting chewed on, who cares?
If there was ever an episode that your dad should listen to, that just sealed the deal right there.
So
that didn't happen. That's not true. Allegedly.
Speaking of Liev Schreiber's character, right, which I think also, again, just like the acting there is phenomenal.
He's great.
So good.
He's great in it. The character, I think, is well portrayed and as I understand the real person, and is really interesting. And in some ways, right, you talk about kind of a hero, right, of the story. Maybe it's Liev Schreiber, right, of all of them, right? Like he comes in and has these really, like, I'm really drawn to like level-headedness, and he's like the ultimate level-headed, which I love in the character and in the portrayal. There's some gentle anti-Semitism that I'll bet wasn't quite so gentle in real life.
I agree.
So like there's these subtle, like they don't ever quite say it, but it's very much like, oh, well, this Jewish editor's coming in
Florida,
and he's, he doesn't like, he doesn't like these Catholics, and
it never came to a head in the movie. Like they never have like a confrontation where somebody calls him out for trying to bury the Catholics because he's Jewish.
But it's like that. But the way that it's communicated in the movie, right, is there's these subtle hints at it from the sort of higher up, supporters of the Catholic Church community to the reporters who are all, especially Robbie, right, who's, a former went to the Catholic high school. Oh, I hear he's from, Florida, and just all these little things. It also, I sometimes would be a little sensitive to a movie kind of pushing that too hard because, as though maybe they were like making too much of it. And in this movie, I thought like it was done really subtly and probably undersold, if anything.
And maybe that speaks to, and I don't know, because, I don't know about anti-Semitism in Boston, but I think it's there. I think, and especially in the, I don't know. I'm speaking out of school.
Well, and even separate. Obviously, it is and it isn't. Right? It's not ubiquitous and it's not absent. Right? There's a little bit of that everywhere. I think for me, the thing that was most impactful about it was that they were willing to kind of bring out any tool they thought might be in their toolkit to steer. They're trying all the things they can try to continue to defend this, right? I mean,
it's like a violenceless mafia. They're just like they're trying to figure out how they can influence everything, but they can't use the guns and
that's a really
and the bullies. But they're like,
it does. It feels like a mafia film without any violence.
Somebody said it earlier that they were just waiting the whole time and I was just waiting for like, oh, there's a knock at the door. He's gonna go get the door, and it's gonna be some thug that the church sent over there to send a message to this guy. You know what I mean?
The only one little thing that they do is there's the one guy that's always constantly like asking asking almost like, seems like his questions are a little bit too pointed. And he's like, oh, we did that back in the day. And like, he seems like he's always trying to like put it off. And I thought that reporter was going to end up being
John Slattery is the actor, the white-haired guy.
Yeah, the white-haired. I thought, oh, he's going to be like the evil one. But then you end up kind of finding out that it's Michael
Ben
Keaton
Bradley Jr.
Right.
Exactly.
is the one who
that was
actually
a nice twist.
They
Right.
for
Kinda
sure
screwed it
lead
up.
you to believe that, oh, he got that box and was like, we shouldn't do this story or
Yeah.
whatever
Right.
it was. Yeah, exactly.
There was one reference to I can't remember which scene it was in, but Batman was talking about how somebody broke their leg skiing or something and made it almost seem like it was like somebody was digging or something. Or I can't remember because I've only seen this movie one time. I don't remember. Do you guys remember that scene?
Yeah,
where
it's
they referenced somebody where somebody broke their leg skiing after they exposed something.
It's because he said that something about God cursed them or something, right? And then he said,
How'd that work
How'd that
out?
work out? And he goes, oh, he broke his leg skiing next week or whatever.
Right.
So I don't know.
So I think it's really interesting you guys bring up like mafia and a thug at the door or something like that, because I think it's not seen, not done, because it's so unnecessary, because they have God on their side.
Yeah.
And when you talk about
Ultimate
mafia, the
thug.
Godfather is God. Why would you need thugs when
Yeah.
this is God you're going against?
well, I mean, just to be clear here, the Catholic Church is not above major violence, right? I mean, like some of but
Yeah,
I mean,
we're gonna
if you
get a
go-
history
if
lesson.
You go back a little ways, right? I mean, this is part. I mean, certainly in modern day, there's not a whole lot of it, but the Catholic Church is like incredibly violent.
The
you know, if
cause,
you go
yeah.
back,
But again,
for
just like
centuries.
he's saying, it's all justified because it's in the name of God,
Exactly,
right? So-
which is why partly you're a little bit like, you guys are probably willing to do. I mean, to me, like when Brad said, he really kind of like struck a chord for me, because like it feels a little like the movie The Firm. I don't know if you guys have seen The Firm, but like it has kind of an eerie
Trying to take
lead
down the
up
mob,
to
yeah.
violence without there being any violence for most of the movie. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's never really any violence in the whole movie. It's just like
you're
chasing.
constantly waiting for it, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the sort of tension that like he has conversations with Wilford Brimley and these other characters, and you're like so tense the whole time that you feel like there's like a real threat in the room,
like Hereditary.
like Hereditary.
A lot of muted threats where it's like,
Just bringing some.
Brad's sampling the soundtrack.
But I mean, to Justin's point about that, I mean, I really like, I mean, I hadn't considered until now, and I probably will watch the movie again with this in mind, but just didn't appreciate as much, like just how much God is present for, like how much that is like sitting heavy with every single thing that's happening, right? He's so much, for the parishioners and for the institution, is so much closer to the action, right? Because these priests are, sort of, arms of God.
Yeah, it's everything here on both sides. Zach mentioned something I thought was interesting when he said it was this thing before it actually came out, before the story.
Right.
Absolutely, for decades it was. But similar, and you guys aren't going to like me bring this up, but similar to UFOs, vaccines, marijuana, it was all a thing before it actually came public. And it was a thing for decades. And now all that stuff is public. It was the same thing with Catholic priests. Unfortunately, we're talking about Catholic priests here. It's priests in general, right? But this was a thing for decades until Spotlight made it national or worldwide.
So you're saying that marijuana, vaccines, and UFOs also all are hiding major pedophilia?
No, I'm saying just the general, like,
that's news
these things
here.
have been around for decades, and there's a lot of rumors and things like that, and now it's of tuition, like all this, 50% of the population is questioning vaccines. Marijuana is legal now. There was documentaries for decades now saying the pros and cons for all this stuff, but mainly it's going to be the pros of this documentary because it's con in real life. But UFOs too. I mean, the Pentagon just released it. Like, this is a real thing we're dealing with. So until it was released publicly, nationally, it was a thing, but it was covered up, just like these other subjects.
Are UFOs real?
100%. According to the government, it's not just our government too. It's 100%. That's another time. Don't get me started on that, please.
I can't wait till I'm gonna,
Aliens or not, UFOs are 100%.
How far over the line would it be?
But what would be in a UFO then?
Anything. It's an unidentified flying object. A UAP, anything you want. It could be our government. They're 100% real, though.
That's where Brad went to school, UAP. What's a UAP stand for? Unidentified
area phenomenon.
Aerial phenomena.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I will tell a short story just to add a little bit more of what did we call it? Brevity or levity?
Levity.
Brevity
So,
of speech.
No, brevity would be if you just shut the fuck up, right?
No. That's not my forte. So we went to a cabin with Justin, and we were having some drinks and standing on the porch, right, Justin?
Yes.
And we were all day talking shit to Justin about his love of aliens and how he thinks that aliens are real and aliens are going to come and they're going to touch our butts and stuff.
Not aliens, UFOs.
UFOs.
No.
Yes.
We were specifically talking about aliens, UFOs, whatever.
Probably.
Yeah. So, and we're standing on the deck, and what happened, dude? No joke.
It was a comet at the time, right? We know it was a comet.
We
or
found out later.
an asteroid.
We found out later, but dude, 2 objects flew right over the cabin insanely fast, faster than any airplane could ever fly.
Separated. Yeah.
And fucking like kind of broke apart and went over us.
Yeah.
And we were losing our fucking
Unlike anything
minds. We were like, Justin was fucking right. Oh my God.
How did you not start a cult right then? How did you just not turn that into
We were
your cult?
losing
You
our
had 'em.
fucking mind. The next morning, I'm on the internet just like, what happened, blah, blah, blah.
Correction. He was losing his mind. I was waving.
That's a missed opportunity right there. Dude.
But dude, I look on the internet the next day, and it was a freaking like we were in the perfect vantage point for this meteor shower.
That's what the
that
mainstream
came
media
through.
wants you to.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they said on the interwebs, bro. I don't know, but dude, it was the most insane.
If the Catholic Church can hide pedophile priests, the government can hide UFOs, man.
Dude, we had just been discussing it, and then it freaking came right at us and went right over our heads, and we were like, what the fuck? And then we found out it was just some stupid space rock.
Stupid comet.
God damn it.
real quick. When you talk about UFOs too, what I was trying to get at, I'm sorry.
Have some respect.
What I was trying to get at
Buckle
is
up,
it-
folks. Buckle up.
UAPs, guys.
or we could say aliens, right? That's even bigger. It's way bigger. So when you talk about that, it's really similar to this subject, Spotlight, and the scandal that went on, in the sense that aliens is a subject, vaccines are a subject that are so uncomfortable with people. They're so uncomfortable. It's questioning everything that they know, right? So that's the same thing here.
I'm pretty comfortable with vaccines.
with-
Just want to go on record.
Pedophilia. No, I'm talking about you are comfortable, but you're not comfortable if somebody's saying vaccines are bad and you've given all the vaccines to your kids. That's a very uncomfortable subject for people to talk about.
Right. You can take this framework and apply it to other things, but it doesn't mean that it's right. I mean, it doesn't mean that it works on those other things. Like, I mean,
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's
I understand
uncomfortable to
your
the point that
situation.
people want to put walls up.
Right.
And so when they hear about a scandal with the Catholic Church
Yeah.
molesting kids, they're like, no, that's God. I can't do that. I go to
think
church.
about that. Yeah.
It's way easier not to think about it and not accept it, not just put it out of your mind.
So not accept
completely.
it, to push it out of your mind. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's easier to ignore, which is what it sounds like a lot of these people are doing when they're saying that, like, oh, he told the mom that it happened, and the mom was like, you know, kind of like, oh no, that happened, but it's the church, blah blah blah, and kind of pushes it out of her mind and goes along with her life because it's too difficult to think about for some people. You have to question your entire life,
Yes.
right? You have to question your entire being,
Yeah.
which is tough for some people.
Or question the government. That too is really, really hard for people to do. Or question law. That stuff is just uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, it has a it's super destabilizing,
Yeah.
right? Like, and we talked, we're talking about like a little bit of a loss of faith thing. It's not just a loss of faith for people that are deep in religion. It's also a loss of community. It's a loss of like it's a loss of family sometimes. It's a loss of, social connections, loss of friendships. So, I mean, I think, some of why it's, so powerful is certainly, what we talked about in terms of the spiritual and the God element, but it's just, I mean, the deeper you're in it, the more you have at stake in rejecting this thing, and that's got to be tough. So I just realized something. I was so excited to have Justin on that we never even talked about what we were drinking with Justin. So should we do that now? Because drinking with the Justin is always brought to you by Last Call Brewing from Oakdale, California.
I will say that we kicked around whether we should call the segment "Drinking with the Altar Boy" and decided to step away from that because
The former altar boy.
it's a slippery slope.
Good thing
It's
we
not
didn't-
present.
Good thing we didn't make that joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. We would never say something like that.
Hopefully it balances out that I also said I want to set all the Catholic churches on fire when they're empty.
Right.
But
Now
still,
that we're going there, if this ever happened to, let's say, a kid of mine or a niece or nephew of mine, I would chase down that guy,
Yeah,
especially if he
that's
was
what I'm
moved.
saying.
Let's say
Like, I
he was
just
moved
don't-
churches. I would find him. I would bring him to my shed. I would burn him on a stake.
You
Yeah.
bring him to the
I would
shed?
burn to my
the
shed.
shed,
I
in
would
the shed.
burn him on a
Frailty,
stake.
frailty style.
Yeah.
And the reason I would do that is not necessarily because of the act that was done. It's because the acts that may occur
After.
to the victim
I'm
afterwards.
I,
Yes.
I like them. I like the idea that I'm saving others, but I would be mad enough. I definitely like. I struggle really with like the hurting the kids thing. Like I want to show some restraint and not say crazy things, but like there's not bad enough things that can happen, and I'd be more than happy to be the vigilante if somebody wants to deputize me. It's terrible.
Can I just jump in real quick and say that our sponsors, Last Call, the views that we are expressing here do not reflect the views of Last Call
Brewing.
Thank you for sponsoring this segment. But
Although I feel like their head brewer Walter would be with me on this.
wow, just throwing out names.
I don't know.
He's in.
Walter, you post and deny that, please, if you're uncomfortable.
Oh, he's going to be like, yeah, I'm pro.
He's like, I'm pro what?
Nothing. I'm not going to say it.
Nothing.
I take it back.
I'm drinking Karate in the Garage, their delicious double hazy IPA, which is one of their best sellers, and it is always tasty. But be careful, folks, when you've had and when it's warm and nice and hot. If you have too many,
4th of July.
4th of July, we were playing. We had a new drinking game
new lawn
activity.
game that Brad got me for my birthday.
Yeah, and it involved throwing a football at a chair and getting it in a little basket. It was quite fun.
I've seen that online.
I wasn't invited
actually
to
really
this.
cool. Yeah, you were in the happiest place on earth, apparently, not being as happy as you could have been here throwing the ball at a chair.
Church.
I look forward to this event.
Yeah, you were invited and said you couldn't go because you're in Disneyland.
The last time I was randomly invited to Nate Monroe's house with Brad Franco was there was Beersby, and it's the greatest game of my life.
Oh.
So this is a Beersby adjacent game, and I had a couple beers, and then Zach and I somehow we had mixed up. I said I'm gonna have 2 karates. You know, you go 2 karates and you're good to go.
Brad had a couple 9 karates.
Well, I go and pour a nice Dust Bowl taco truck lager, and then all of a sudden somehow beers get switched around. I think Zach took my beer and he thought it was his, and so I'm like, I guess I gotta go get another beer.
And got himself another karate.
I completely forgot and somehow poured myself a 3rd karate, and then from that point.
No, this is what happened. Brad was then a little. He was pretty good, but there was a couple stumbles, a couple of forgetting words, and then he started referring to himself as, "Why are we letting Mr. Karate do this? Why is Mr. Karate doing? Mr. Karate shouldn't be doing this." He referred to himself in the 3rd person as Mr.
as a different
Mr.
name.
Karate. Yeah.
I didn't want to keep the rules or the score. I was like, why am I the one in
Why are
charge
we
of the
letting
score?
Mr. Karate keep score?
We also, I think we went outside the rules and allowed for some blocking downfield, and that was fun too. So you're
Dude, interception returns is the best thing about this game.
So this is the game, dude. We're like 60 feet from each other. You throw the football, it bounces, and the other team can intercept it, and then they can run it back. So Brad intercepts the ball, and then Nate with Nate as his lead blocker, and me and little Nicky over here have to go and get them, and Nate is just running full speed, right? Dude, fast too. He's fast, and
I'm
dude,
like Angus.
Nate's blocking. Brad's coming around doing jukes, doing karate moves and shit. It was wild. Things were moving.
This
fast.
is exactly what we need to protect the kids in the churches.
It's a good time. Yeah, more lawn games. So what do you? Did you already say what you're drinking, Scott?
I'm drinking the taco truck out of your.
Yeah, we
delicious
reloaded.
keg over
We've been
there.
having. We had Blaker Brewing brew on tap for a while. We jumped back temporarily to our local Turlock, California Dust Bowl. We got some taco truck lager.
I do have a BBK in my fridge, though.
Do you do BBK
keeping
IPA? That's still
free time.
that might still come back one of these days. Maybe we should see they'll do it for the 1 year anniversary coming up.
Can I say that I don't know when this is going to come out, but at the time of this recording, we just hit 10,000.
Just hit 10,000
listens.
Dude.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we kind
love
of
it.
soft pedaled it, but yeah, 10,000 listens.
and those are individual people too. 10,000 people.
People listens.
Yeah,
not-
peoples.
Well, I mean, there might
10,000
have only
people
been like 5 people that listen.
that listen a
over and
lot.
over.
Yeah.
But yeah, 10,000 is pretty cool.
Dude, that's amazing.
Bigger number.
Yeah, it's a bigger number.
To talk about you guys real quick too, and you might have to edit this, I don't know, but when you guys first came up with this podcast, right? It was really hard for me. I tried to listen to it, and it was super hard because I wanted to be in the conversation. It's like, these are my friends. Why am I not allowed to talk right now?
Hard to listen with your dick that hard.
It's hard to listen because it was shit.
No, I loved it, and I couldn't talk, so it was like really awkward for me. And I was like, well, I'll just go do the real thing. Like, why am I listening? I can't even talk back or anything. But then, like, our lives got busy. I saw you guys less. And then when I finally needed to switch occupations, got on the tractor, I was able to like put some time in, like marathon this. I was like, this is great. I'm back with my friends again. I don't care if I can talk anymore. This is perfect. Right. Anyway, but then I kind of went south because when I started listening to the episodes and you had so many guest speakers on, I'm like, man, the only time I can come on this pod is from my experience as an altar boy who almost got molested.
Gotta have a story.
That's how low I am right now.
You picked the movie, so
To be fair,
hot spot.
You did pick hot spot.
Hot spot. Got shot.
It's your own self. It's your own self. Sort of a little bit of self therapy here. I think is what
Spotlight. It is. I'm sorry.
Can we also? I also want to just a little bit on point. But so Justin and I have been friends a long time. But before we were friends, I was his babysitter. And I'm convinced,
dating
Can we
himself.
have a confessional?
Yeah. So I was gonna say, and so I was in charge of him as a young boy. In fact, probably around the time that Father O'Grady was also in charge. and I babysat him for a week. He and his younger brothers, and I was not asked back. Now I'm not saying I was fired.
Not enough tickling.
And there was no tickling or anything else involved. What it was I believe that I fed him too many pieces of cinnamon toast. Every morning would open with like a pan of just cinnamon sugar toast, and I think we went through like 4 or 5 loaves of bread like a day for a week.
We had a great time. Sports every day, different activities.
It was a lot of cinnamon sugar bread.
Nate let us do whatever we wanted.
Can we rewind right now? Your parents left for a week,
I know.
and we're like, high school Nate, just come over to the house.
Yeah.
My God.
It wasn't like overnights. But no, it was like the work day. So, yeah. So I just organized like sporting events and made him.
So you were a Manny.
I was a Manny.
I got you.
Yeah,
The greatest Manny.
It was like Nate's day camp.
Nate's literally like 3.5 years older than me. Totally dating himself right now.
You had no respect. You're like, fuck you.
Highly questionable.
I could beat your ass right now.
That's true. You guys are. That's so funny.
All right. So that's drinking with the Justin. Justin, you can hang around for a little snag shag for it with us?
Love to, yes.
All right, great. We'll see you back in a minute. All right. What the fuck?
You want me to hit the button first?
Yeah, hit the button. What does thumbs
Is
up
it a
mean?
one-night stand? Do you hit it with a shovel or take it home to mom and dad? It's like fuck, marry or kill. It's Shag Snack Body Bag.
God, I love that jingle.
I was waiting for you to promo it. I'd be like, hey, what are we on?
Oh, man, we went straight to the jingle.
All right, straight to the jingle.
So we're snagging, shagging, and body bagging. I always say it in the wrong order. It's shag, snag, body bag.
Best part of that jingle is the way that Scott enunciates fuck. It's like fuck, marry or kill. It's fucking
Hard
great.
K. It's a hard K. Okay, so we're gonna start out shagging, and since you're a guest here at Bev's Video Kingdom, Justin, what are you gonna shag? What do you like? What do you love from that movie with a passion, but burns bright and hot and burns out quickly?
Okay, so my response here is very general. I'm going to shag the making of the movie in general because this whole thing is, it's Spotlight. It's Boston Globe. It came out in a newspaper. And several articles came out, right? And then they made the movie. So now just millions more people are going to see this scandal. I love the fact that they took that on and how factual the movie was at the same time. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm shagging.
I like it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. They didn't have to make up anything. They just went with the facts and really delivered a great movie. My shag's pretty much related to that. My shag is just taking down pieces of shit. If you've got a movie where some really just easy to root against person is getting taken down, or institution or organization is getting taken down, I'm all for it. And in this movie, it's some very evil motherfuckers getting taken down, and I enjoy the hell out of it. When we don't like we said earlier, you don't get to see their comeuppance, but you do know that at least it was made aware, and that hopefully some changes have been made.
Well, the biggest thing about it is people got to get the story out there, and people had a voice finally. That was what they wanted.
Yeah.
People just wanted them to at least hear it, and start the dialogue. And so, I think I agree with that. My shag is movies that make you feel.
Yeah.
It's fucked up, but I was at the end of this movie. It was just a really weird feeling. I was emotional, but I respected the hell out of the movie, the accuracy, the performances, and I just felt this. I love a good film that makes you actually feel something. It's pretty rare. A lot of times, with all the Marvel movies, which I love, but this is a completely different feeling.
Yeah.
It's like you respect it. Same way with the movie Seven, so many years ago. As gnarly as that movie was, I walked out of that movie going, holy shit, that made me feel something. And I dig that.
It's a great take.
I'm shagging kind of the juxtaposition, I guess would be the word. I don't know what it is, but the feeling that all of these reporters have when the biggest story of their entire lives, or so they thought, is the spotlight story that they're doing on these Catholic priests. And then 9/11 happens, and they're just caught in this like whirlwind of, oh my God, this is now this is the biggest story that's ever happened, and we've got to put all this stuff on the back burner, but we still want to tell this story and get this stuff out there, but there's no way we can't, immediately move into this other thing, which I thought was really cool, and I hope that was, I didn't do enough research to know, but I hope that was like true, like the way that the kind of their feelings and their mixed feelings about that going forward through the film, I thought was pretty cool.
Did you already shag, Brad? What'd you shag?
We all did.
I shagged taking down pieces of shit
I
for breakfast.
You eat shit for breakfast.
You take down pieces of shit for breakfast?
So I'm gonna shag the intersection of Liev Schreiber and Marty, who plays Marty Baron. So I both love the way Liev Schreiber is phenomenal in this, and the portrayal of the character is great. But I think he's also working with great source material. Marty Baron's I think is actually a very interesting character, and like I said, I'm just the level-headedness of makes him a little understated, and sort of in some ways he fades as the hero of the story, but there's a sense in which he's the hero. None of this happens without him.
Yeah.
And so I love the Marty Baron character.
I second that real quick. I love that guy too, and I love the fact that he wanted directly to take down the system. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was so big, and to have somebody in power, towards the top in their profession to say, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take down the system. We're not going to take a case.
Yes. The vision.
To have the vision, exactly, the foresight to say, like, no, this is bigger than one priest or two priests.
Because he knew it would get buried in Metro like it did already, which comes out later in the film. It's like, with the 20, victims, it's like it got fucking buried. And he's like, no, dude. This is bigger. That's the story.
And how many times in life do you see something happen and you're like, okay, we can stop that, but it's not going to stop until you look at the overall system. And
totally.
We have to change that system.
And to piggyback that, Nate stepped right on my my snag, which was going to be handsome Seth Rogen, which is Liev Schreiber in this movie. He looks so much like if Seth Rogen went and worked out and had a full head of hair, and they could be brothers. And goddamn, he is good. I really love him. That was my snag.
Oh,
sure.
That dude is versatile. He's been in so many different weird roles.
That Showtime show that he was on, Ray Donovan.
Ray Donovan, yeah.
Dude, fucking wild shit.
Do you ever see the movie Goon?
Goon, he's awesome.
He's great.
As the Bob Probert type guy. Yeah, for sure.
Hockey thug. That's a great film.
Yeah, he's versatile and kind of like a little bit of a sleeper. He's a great
Mixed
actor,
Nuts. He was wasn't he a cross-dresser in Mixed Nuts? That was one of his first major roles.
Dang, that's again
that's
before
deep.
my time,
That's
bro.
that's a deep cut. That's deep IMDb right there, buddy.
Yeah.
All right,
Porno.
Brad, what are you gonna snag?
Wait. There was a cross-dressing movie called Mixed Nuts.
No, the Mixed Nuts is a Christmas movie that my wife watches every Christmas. But he's Steve Martin's a psychiatrist, and one of his I was going to say customers, but one of his clients is Liev Schreiber, and he's a cross-dresser, and so he's in women's clothing the entire time.
Really?
Makeup, yeah.
Dude, I can't picture that at all.
That was
That's
one of his
wild.
first roles, yeah.
I love that.
All right, so my snag is just Michael Keaton, and Michael Keaton. very few times I've seen him on screen where I haven't just been like, man, I just love that guy. He's just a great actor. He's always entertaining. He can play like the happy-go-lucky guy. He can play Beetlejuice. He can play very serious, like contemplative role like this one. And I always enjoyed Michael Keaton.
I'm Batman.
He's been Batman. He was the first gloomy Batman, which was I think he did an amazing job. I think he gets kind of a underrated. I mean, he was the first Batman besides Adam West. So
It's my favorite Batman movie.
Yeah.
I see some respect for his Batman.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
on the interwebs that I surf.
He's
All right. Well, that's good. I hope so. I will say I'm not a Bostonian, so any of the accents that were portrayed here, I don't know how great they were.
I thought they did a pretty good job, and the fact
I'm saying, from my perspective, I was like, okay, maybe it's not great. Maybe Bostonians are like, God, these fuckers suck.
right? Yeah, and I like the fact that they had the part where Rachel McAdams didn't have accent at all, and she said that she's from Ohio originally,
Right.
And so they kind of explained why she doesn't have one, rather than her just not having an accent.
And it wasn't just because it would automatically make her less attractive if she had a crazy Boston accent.
So I'm going to snag the sources the journalists came up with, and I'm doing a disservice by not knowing their name, but one in particular had a metric system, the 6% of priests.
It was the guy that had written the
Sipe.
book. Yeah.
Okay, so the fact that he put math to this and how accurate he was behind it, I mean, he was spot on. It actually ended up being way more in the end, but when they were doing their research,
He said it was going to be 90 and it came out to 87.
87.
Yeah.
Yeah.
how spot on is that? That just blew my mind. I had chills during that whole time.
Did you guys know who that voice is? It's just his voice.
It's Richard Jenkins.
I don't know if I wrote it down, but it's the dad and Step Brothers.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I heard it and I was like, dude, is that
We
Step
couldn't
Brothers?
remember his name on the draft last week. So
Okay, yeah.
I think I'm right about that.
I'm gonna snag, like, I think, Zach mentioned it earlier. Mark Ruffalo, I've never been a fan either, and it's like the movie Now You See Me is some of the worst acting I think I've ever seen.
I love those movies.
I love the movie, but he gives nothing. Like in that whole, he's just like, he has no range at all. There's certain films that I do like him, but I've just never been a fan of his. He was great in this, and I just really love it. Another weird little thing I wanted to point out, because I don't know where else I would. Jamie Sheridan, who was his source at the end, the guy that kind of represented and covered up his golfing buddy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
He's
that
great.
guy.
Yeah.
So he was. I was the whole time. I was like, how do I know this guy? Where have I seen him? It was the movie Life Is a House.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was the new husband.
Yeah.
That guy. So,
That's a good movie.
but what was funny was when I was looking it up, trying to find out where he was from, his description on IMDb literally starts like this: virile, fair-haired, set-jawed actor.
Virile, huh?
Virile, fair-haired, set-jawed. So anyway,
I like white hair as fair haired.
Nice.
Completely white hair.
So I'm here. I'm going to snag the press earning its spot in the First Amendment. I mean, again, like I have a lot of, I interact with press, in my day-to-day life, occasionally reporters, and I often find myself like a little off-put by it, and I certainly find myself off-put by the way that a lot of journalism has gone. But I still remember, right? Like, there's a reason that press is protected, and whatever shit they do and whatever sort of like it morphs into, this is why, right? Like, there's a role for them to protect people kind of being themselves, and occasionally it's irritating, but it's the kind of irritating that's important. And so, like I said, I think Brad kind of nailed it, right? They're the heroes of the story, and you feel real good about the fact that they're around, at the end of this one.
Well, it's funny. My body bag was going to be the First Amendment or just the Bill of Rights in general. Just with things that are going on today, it's like it's so wild that we had this thing that was written, almost 250 years ago that with very little description, and we use it to try to like decide all these things about internet and stuff like that. So my actual body bag is going to be just the internet. which is funny because just a little bit ago off the air, I was told that I am. What was the
I think
statement?
You're better at the internet than anyone else I know.
Better at the internet, but my body bag here is the internet, and my specific reason for this is that when you watch a movie like Spotlight, you see real journalists doing their job and having the timing to do their job. It's not rushed to as fast as we can get it out and and use some clickbait. And we talked about earlier how it's just this intersection of about early 2000s of when newspaper are starting to realize, we're fucked. There's something coming out here that if we don't figure out how to use it, we're going to be dinosaurs.
Well, all the President's Men, right? Is based on events that happen basically 25 to 30 years, 30 years before the events of Spotlight. And they're very similar movies. In fact, Spotlight owes a lot, I think, to like the pacing,
right?
The feel of it is a lot like All the President's Men, which of course, details Woodward and Bernstein, uncovering the Watergate scandal and or blowing it up. And it's funny because in some ways, right, like those two movies exist and the reporters behave in very similar ways, right, in terms of their standards, in terms of their operation, in terms, and it's almost the last moment. Right, like you go 25 or 30 years, and that pretty much stays intact. And if you made a movie about similar events 5 years later, it probably is not believable as being sort of similar in this way, and certainly not 10 years later.
Right, and my point about the internet is just the fact that I've seen that one of the biggest defeats in with the internet is that it has defeated kind of legit journalism, and it's trying. I mean, they're still trying to figure it out, but I mean, it's still kind of the wild west of how does journalism look in the era of social media and of Twitter and things like that.
Just being first is more important than being accurate, right?
Which is scary. It just and it's led to a lot of fake news. It's led to a lot of just misinformation, just drifting out there on a day-to-day basis, 24/7. Oh, I'm not saying any side. Yeah, I'm saying just misinformation in general can get out so fast.
Which just creates a lot of mistrust, so that now all of a sudden you don't know where to go, right, and how. So then it's the press that cried wolf, right? Like.
Exactly.
If half the time, or if a certain percentage of the time they're just wrong when they're right, you don't know it and you don't trust it.
Well, I just saw that CNN, for example, they're going to stop using breaking news as much because they had just basically abused it to the point of like breaking news. It's like, no, not everything.
The sun has risen.
Yeah, not everything is fucking breaking news. But ultimately, my concern is with media, especially locally. I mean, Boston obviously is a big city, but they were talking about how the Boston Globe feels like a small newspaper because it's like almost like it's a community newspaper. And the idea that when I look at communities that I live in now, and I know that some of the folks that in these communities are no longer getting a local newspaper or even from real reporters, they're getting it from all over the internet, or they're going to very niche like Facebook groups that are calling themselves news, right, but they admit they have agendas. They admit that they're not going to be being fair and balanced or anything. And so it's warping people's minds, and we're seeing a lot of effects of it now, and it really scares me.
90% of people are getting 100% of their news from Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, Instagram, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And not realizing that experience that they're having is sort of curated by themselves. You know what I mean? They're seeing things that they, whether they know it or not, that the logarithm thinks they want to see, right?
Well, they mentioned the lack of classified ads. They talk about classified sales are starting to be lost to the internet. That once they started losing their income, they have to start raising their prices. As you raise your prices, you get to a price point where people are just gonna be like, oh, fuck that. I know for a few family members got obituaries, and like they used to be like, oh, it's like $30 for a few days. And now it's like, oh, we charge $450 for like 2 hours. And it's just like, it's like crazy, like how much they charge things now. And so as things start getting more expensive, there's like, I can keep paying for this little shitty newspaper, or I can just go to this little website or this Facebook page and get some of the same news, and this is free. Fuck it, I'm not paying for the real news anymore.
Which in turn kind of shits on all of it, because there's you can put anything on there and press publish, and everybody sees it, and a certain percentage of people are going to look at that.
Not trained journalists, no ethics, no anything.
A certain amount of people are going to see it and think, this is the truth.
Yeah.
You know, I saw it.
It's scary.
I saw it on a thing. It was in print. You know.
So body bag, internet. Even though I love you, I'll make up with you tonight.
What are you body bagging, Justin?
So I'm going to body bag in general. When I think of body bag and I think of Spotlight, I want to body bag every person that was involved in the scandal. Like I want to body bag the lawyers, the cardinal law, the charitable douchebag. Like I just want to put them all in a body bag, and I want to do terrible things to them before I put them in a body bag.
No, I mean this is maybe the one movie that we've ever had where the literal body bag,
clear body bag.
yeah, very
Agreed.
literal body bag.
Well,
you know,
I'll
in
just-
this sense.
So I got another body bag moment. I love Michael Keaton. I hated his response at the end. I know it has to stay factual. I know that's what happened, but I wanted it to go Hollywood at that moment when he said, I knew of this. This came across my desk or whatever, the 20 kids that had been molested. I wanted more emotion.
You need more. That's when. Oh, shit! I just came up with my alternate ending. Sorry.
I needed something there. So I'm body bagging only that scene and his response to that. I needed more there.
Okay.
Fair enough. Yeah. My body bag's pretty much the same shit. People in power who take advantage of kids. Not just religion, but scouts, athletic doctors, all this shit. They can all fuck right off.
Yeah, I was going to body bag all the organizations and people in those organizations that hide and make it possible for predators and to abuse kids. I'm body bagging them.
I mean, just at the risk of being a broken record, I mean, it has to be just like the targeting of marginalized kids who are already, down on their luck. They have their parents have died or whatever it is. All these kids that are getting targeted by this, whether it's on purpose or not, or that's just because it's easier to target those kids. Like that's the grossest part to me. I mean, all of it's gross, but the part where it's like, oh, we're gonna go after these kids that are already
kids
damaged,
already down.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. It's like, dude, what the fuck? How evil can you be?
I also think we should body bag. I'm getting crazy here, but any church that hasn't made adjustments, like Brad was saying, like what is being done now?
Yeah.
If they don't have some kind of security cameras, if they don't have some kind of protocol put in place, and all their catechisms, all the communions, any altar boy situation, that needs to happen now.
I definitely. This movie makes me feel like I want to be a vigilante for a few days. I feel very vigilante.
I've got a backhoe, but
Yeah, I'm telling
we
you,
can
man.
fucking hide a lot of bodies.
Give me the kerosene. All right.
These pedophiles grow good almonds.
All right, so we're on to the often forgotten about category of what song do you end the movie with?
Streaming recommendations.
Oh, we do that first?
Yeah, always.
We're on to streaming recommendations. What do y'all got? Throw them out.
I got Delivers from Evil because that's obviously personal to me. And
So talk about what it is again. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but for Delivers from Evil is what?
Delivers from Evil is on Father Oliver O'Grady, which was the last priest to go through our ministry in Houston at St. Anthony's Church. So it follows his entire story, but it interviews him throughout the documentary and how much of a sicko he was.
Chilling
It talks about-
shit, right? Yeah.
Talks about how he prayed. He talks
very
about
candid.
how he prayed on kids very much. And, I don't want to give the whole thing away. I just know that it takes a little bit to get into it, and then it gets real.
Yeah.
It gets very real halfway through.
I got one. Mine is, when we're thinking about all this pedophilia with the Catholic Church and the priests and stuff, and the hiding being just the biggest sin of just hiding all of it and not allowing anybody to be punished for this or changing their ways. Pretty much related to that. I felt the same way for a long time about college football. And, all their hiding of people getting
people,
paid
yeah.
and all this stuff. So I'm going to go with the program.
I knew it.
That was that's your recommendation?
It's funny. I thought you were going somewhere, and I laughed, and I go, "Oh shit, maybe he's being serious." Then I felt bad for a minute, and then okay, good. He's
No. Yeah, the program, college football, and all their shenanigans have been going on for years and years. Of
That was based on your dad's steroid scandal, right?
I think, yeah, it was inspired by. That's what they said, inspired by. But the program is available on the Who's, which is Hulu and Hoopla. So if you've got the Who's, you are down for some free programs.
Some hoo-hoo.
And just all the scandals that they hide in that movie, from steroids, from drinking problems to test passing and
Sexual assault.
And sexual assault.
Yeah,
all that
all
stuff is just getting all swept under the bus so they can get some dubs.
Under the bus.
What?
Just being swept under the bus.
Swept onto the train tracks they lay down on.
No, he lays down in the middle of the street.
Or he lays down in the street. He stands in front of the train, but then he jumps off to the side.
It's not under the rug, though. Not swept under the rug. It's under the bus.
Swept under the bus is. I actually wouldn't
think I've
have.
mixed
I
a
wouldn't
couple.
have even caught that. I didn't even know where you were going after you said it like 4 times. But now that you said
neither.
now that you said under the rug, I'm like, fuck, that makes a lot more
Usually
sense.
we throw people under the bus.
You throw people under the rug.
Deflect blame. But
He threw me right under the rug.
It's a lowrider bus, so you can't really see under it. So that's when you're
Sweep stuff
sweeping
under
under
it.
It's a
there.
lowrider. It's
That
got
checks
ground
out.
effects, airbags and shit.
All right. Scotch, what do you got?
So this isn't a movie; it's a series. Just watching the process and the actual reporting made me think of one of the best series that I've seen about a subject like this, The Newsroom.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my god, dude, it's
Really good on Apple.
so
yeah.
good. Brad, have you seen The Newsroom? It's on
HBO.
HBO Max.
Yeah.
HBO Max.
Oh.
It's HBO and it's like
Yeah.
early
Wait,
90s.
who are the
It's been
actors?
around for a while. So it's Jeff Daniels.
Yeah.
Oh shit! It was on like a. It was
Emily
pretty-
Mortimer.
It didn't go for long.
It was, because it was only like 3 or 4 seasons. It was kind of short
3 or
seasons.
4 seasons.
Who's the writer? It's
So
got
Aaron
the
Sorkin.
Yeah, Aaron
Yeah.
So
Sorkin.
Aaron Sorkin, one of the most amazing screenwriters there is. It's just such an amazing, so well written. The acting is so good, and you give a shit about every single one of the characters in it. And I can't recommend this series enough. It's so good.
Speaking of Sorkin, we didn't mention this during the pod, but Josh Singer is one of the writers credited. Tom McCarthy, the director, is also one of the writing credits. But Josh Singer wrote for The West Wing, and I mean, if he had a lot of influence in this movie, like, seems like he's kind of an up and coming kind of Sorkin-ish type guy. If you look at some of the stuff he's done, it's like Sorkin adjacent. So he's kind of got that same vibe.
Something else that's kind of interesting. So Tom McCarthy, the director, and also what co-wrote this, co-wrote Up, that I knew that
Oh,
you
really?
would appreciate, Brad.
I like how Brad just said the guy that wrote the movie that won Best Picture is up and coming. All right. So
They also won the Oscar for best screenplay.
He's Sorkin adjacent.
okay, so the immediate movie that I thought of this entire movie and thought that it could have been better, and Brad said it best. If Fincher directs this movie, I think it's a better movie. We're going Zodiac because there was a lot of parallels. I thought it was. I thought that Zodiac did a better job of. Not that I want to see pedophilia on screen, but I thought that it kind of showed, kind of what it had some depictions of what
the
it
murders,
happened.
though.
The,
You know what I mean?
lakeside scene
Yeah,
is just
exactly.
still sticks with me.
Chillingly.
Very chilling. And I think that they
Sort
could
of.
have done a little bit more of that to make this movie even more impactful than it was, because it's already super uncomfortable. I think if they don't go super heavy handed and don't go super graphic, I think they could have shown a little bit more, and you would have just been even more repulsed by some of the stuff going on.
So Nate and I talked about this too. I wonder if they didn't do that because it would have pushed people away from watching it. And
Probably.
which gets me
Probably.
to the point where I can't stand when I recommend this movie and people are like, no, I can't watch that.
Right.
what
And
do
you're
you
like,
mean you
dude,
can't watch that?
because they're like, by watching it, I'm somehow complicit.
I can't think about that.
Well,
I can't watch that. It's like,
I think it gets back to exactly what someone said earlier is it's that, you want to put that wall up because it feels uncomfortable. And there's something to the idea, on the one hand, I mean, there are people that can't watch it. They really have trauma and this is sort of a problem for them. That's a different thing. But I think, people that are like, I can't watch this because I just don't want to think about it. That's fair. Like, you don't want to think about, there's a lot of bad shit in the world. You want to think about all of it, but got to kind of confront some of it.
This is
and
happening.
again, if you're going to pick something to give a shit about, hurting kids is a good one.
That's
Okay.
how I feel every time I recommend a scary movie to Nate. And he's like, I can't watch that. And I'm like, come
Scary
on,
things
bro.
happen. Okay, there are supernatural things
There's
around.
really ghosts and demons, dog.
All right, so I'm gonna go with the true lineage of this movie. It most closely goes back to All the President's Men.
Yeah.
Where Woodward and Bernstein uncover the Watergate scandal. It's on HBO Max. It's a true classic. I mean, one of the best movies of I mean, maybe one of the best movies of all time, and certainly probably the best movie about journalism of all time. If you haven't seen it, and if you like the feel of Spotlight, you are going to really like that one. So HBO Max it. That's a great one. All right,
Brad, what song are we going to play at the end of this movie? What do we got over there?
You know what? There's some times when you just have to. Sometimes you skip a section here and there, and I think tonight we might actually just skip our. I know the fans love it, are clamoring for it, but we might just have to skip the alternate movie song.
Hard disagree. I have one, and I have two, and I want to put them out.
Oh,
I have one. I
go
have
right
to
ahead.
go
I thought we were trying to have some.
I don't give a shit. I'm going. I'm going full
I
scorched.
want to hear
earth
it.
there.
I'm into this right now. Nate's very serious.
First one, Talking Heads, Burning Down the House.
Now we're talking. There we go.
Just fucking.
that.
Okay, imagine that.
I like that a lot.
Imagine that this goes right into my alternate ending, which is instead of going to credits, all of a sudden we just rise up above the city, burning down the house.
And there's
All the
fire
churches
starting
are on fire.
all
all
over.
the Catholic churches are just fucking burning.
Oh, I love that.
I love how you just so
people are
specific on
rioting.
Catholic churches. So I'm like,
Tarantino just fucking directed this thing. This deserves a Tarantino directing.
Actually,
right?
I love
this take. I love it.
So yeah,
you want the Inglorious Bastards version?
I want Inglorious Bastards for the Catholic priest change scandal. I
alternate-
want it. I need it.
wow.
We all need it.
That's not bad.
Okay. Yeah, that's
so
number
you
one.
have another song. Okay,
I do.
Because I was going to piggyback into endings, but do your other song. Go ahead.
I'm gonna commission NWA to do a re-release of their absolute hit, and it's going to be "Fuck the Police."
I knew you were going to do that.
Oh, that's pretty
was
legit.
great.
There it goes.
See, we
Just,
can't.
it just like it goes like the screen goes black, and then like you get a couple second beats like what's going to happen, and then it's just "Fuck the police," and it just boom, it goes into
fuck the police.
yeah, it just the credits roll. I love it.
I love that.
Those are my songs.
Hey, on your alternate ending, I was going to just a little quick piggyback. Is that mine? Is that when he's doing the "they knew" and Ruffalo's getting all excited, all of a sudden he starts twitching, and all of a sudden he turns into the Hulk. And now instead of burning down the house, he's just running around to all the Catholic churches, just
Breaking stuff, just busting through
just
stained
Hulk
glass
smashing
windows.
all
Hulk
the shit. He's got two priests. He's just whipping them across the ground, just
Hulk
like whack, whack, whack. And he's just
I like
going
that.
just scorched earth on everybody. So there we go.
So, we always try to tie in the amazing Till Dawn endings, which sometimes
Spotlight till dawn.
sometimes it's a stretch. Sometimes it works amazing.
This time.
This one fucking needs it,
And
and it'll also
it
make
demands
Zach
it.
happy because they end up relocating all the priests. They load them up on buses and they say we're going to take you on a mission, and you guys are going to
New assignment.
a new assignment. We're going to take you down to Mexico. And they drive him right up to the titty twister.
Titty twister.
Yes.
And all the priests go in there. We're going to, convert all these bikers. We're going to spread the word. And they walk in.
It's just
And it just
Beautiful.
fucking,
The door gets
vampires
locked.
feast.
Vampire carnage.
Instead of fighting their way out,
Yep.
they just get eaten.
they just get eaten and destroyed and shredded.
Spotlight till
Rape
dawn.
first.
That's what I'm talking
I
about.
want them to get raped first.
We need the Quentin Tarantino version. So
Yeah.
so no, this
So I have
is, we
issues,
can
though.
we can meld ours, right? Because like it comes up, we see the churches burning,
Yep.
and then we cut to the bus in Mexico.
Okay, so mine, my song.
Hang on.
ahead.
I don't like the traditional vampire hunter, vampire killers are priests. Like that would be the worst scenario ever for all those vampires. They turn around all these priests coming.
I know,
out.
I did
It's
think
like
about that.
crosses and crucifixes and holy
it's
water and
perfect
shit.
because they get their revenge on these priests.
Yeah, but a priest and he actually shoves his crucifix down one of the vampires'
Yeah.
mouth, and from
Yeah,
the
dude.
Dawn,
Holy
it, like,
water and stuff.
That's what I'm
blows
saying.
up.
But none of that shit happens.
But no way, they take all their like holy water and crosses away before they shove them in the door.
Then
we
I'm
go.
in.
There
Then I'm
we
in.
go.
Bingo. I saved
the
it.
priests don't win, dude.
No.
Well,
no,
if you've
no,
ever
no.
seen a vampire movie,
This is a different
disagree.
kind. This is a different kind of spotlight. Okay. Fuck the police.
Sexy vampire dance.
So my alternative song goes with my alternative ending because we're going into alternative endings right
Yeah.
now too. Okay, so the song is Hallelujah, and I want pictures of children in the choirs, altar boys, I want confessions. I want repeated pictures as this song is going on. I want to leave a statement at the end of this movie. And then I want it to go dark with no lyrics, just some very dark instrumental music. And I want all the pictures of all of these fuckers in there, displayed with names, lawyers.
And locations.
Cardinal law. Locations.
Yeah.
I want all of
Addresses.
it. And I want it to end like that.
Oh, I love that. Like, blow them up. Like,
Yeah.
Here. If you're looking for people to send hate mail
And their
to,
addresses.
here you go.
Yeah. But first you show the kids, the pictures, not the victims, just kids in general with the song.
And then you send all the, you show, here's all the perpetrators, go at
Yes.
them. Oh, I love it.
I mean,
I'm in.
on a serious note, that probably like would have opened them up to like possibly like lawsuits and shit. Like, I mean, I'm thinking like they throw up some stats, like how many like they like, and I'm not trying to be funny about it. I'm just saying like they have like allegedly like 43 victims or something that, where it's just like.
But not Leonard Cohen stopped by then, right? Like Hallelujah's done.
Wait, was he
and
doing
then
Jeff Buckley or the Leonard Cohen version?
That's
Gotta be
important.
Cohen, right?
I think
Cohen's is the darker.
there's 7,000 versions of that song. It's a great song. But I
pick
think
one.
I think Hallelujah ends, and then like you said, it goes into like the Hereditary music, and then the faces
Yes.
start coming up.
With the victim.
I think we've got a lot of good material for alternate endings.
Wow. Anybody else?
My alternate ending is similar to everyone else's alternate ending. I want some, at least I want a
little bit of vengeance.
song, and I want some people getting arrested. I want some people like, you know, taking a shit, and then all of a sudden the police kick their door in, and you see the panic on their face. You don't even have to see them getting arrested. You just see like the panic on their face, like, oh shit, I'm about to get arrested. Anyways, yeah, that's what I want. I want a lot of scenes. I want a lot of scenes of terror on people's faces who think they're real comfy and think that they're above the law, and then all of a sudden they're fucking scared. That's what I want.
Yeah, I'll end this, I guess, just by saying like, the older I get, the more like I see a lot of gray in the world. Right, I have a harder time seeing like those black and white lines, and sometimes I'm envious of people that hold on to some of that, like those harder lines. But man, when I watch this movie, I don't see any gray. Like I just,
Damn right.
It's and you know, I mean that both about the story and the movie. Like it does a really good job of being like, okay, like let's make sure we're clear about the issues here. Let's clear about what's going on. So, you know, it's a really well-made movie. It's a super, you know, great cast. The acting is really good, but the story behind it is so compelling. And I think, you know, I get what Justin's saying here, right? Like in some ways, you know, if you can handle it, if you don't have, you know, a particular trauma, you kind of owe it. You owe it to those kids to watch it and kind of think a little bit about it, and maybe think about how to not be complacent if you see an opportunity to support change in a system that could put kids at risk in that way, right? Like, you know, and like, you know, Scott has made the point a couple times, right? It's not just the Catholic Church. It's Boy Scouts that recently, right, in recent memory and in proximity, it's other churches, it's the Catholic Church, you know, in addition to Catholic churches, other churches, it's Boy Scouts, it's athletics of all levels, it's football programs, it's, you know, universities. There's just a lot of places that shows up. And so if it's happening like that, you know, like it deserves some attention, and it's a fucking problem that is worthy of trying to solve if there's anyone. So anyway, check the movie out, and thanks for listening. That was
Justin, thanks for coming on, dude.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
you, man.
Appreciate you guys. Loved it.
I'd like to say just, and this is kind of related to my whole problem with the internet, social media, and just even having a podcast, is like, here at the end, I'd like just to say, you know, like, I don't think any of us have any problem with somebody having being spiritual, having their own religious views and things like that.
No, definitely
We're
not.
definitely looking at the institutions and the people that allowed some of this terrible stuff to happen. I mean, that's who our wrath is geared towards. If you have a relationship, a spiritual relationship with whatever, I mean, that's your business, and that's great. And I don't think we're trying to attack anybody's religious views or personal views at all.
If you have a religion where it's okay to fuck with little kids, then fuck your religion.
Right.
But I don't think, you know, these are outliers in this religion, and yes, it was, you know, overlooked by the people above, but I think that a majority of people in Catholicism in particular are, you know, they're good people trying to be good people.
Totally.
And I have zero beef with them, and I think that hope that those people would look at these actions by the people higher up in their church and be like, that is despicable, and that doesn't represent me as a Catholic. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
And like I'm saying, with having a podcast, we're putting this at the very end, and there might be some people who've listened and shut us off and turned it off because they're like, oh, I'm not listening to this. These guys.
The people that need to hear this have already turned it off.
True statement. True statement.
Right. Okay, so next week we're following on our spotlight journey with a draft of the most memorable movie reporters. So jump in with us for that one, and we'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
I wanna be at Beverly's, bringing me home with my movies, just a blind by, no reason why. I love this scene. Nick Nate, I can brag your favorite podcast. Let's start this